So I said I would do this live to talk about Mailchimp multiple lists and to try and help you understand why you shouldn't use multiple lists. It's kind of one of the biggest mistakes I see in various places where people are using multiple lists and then they get into difficulties trying to manage different things between different lists. So we're going to discuss about why you shouldn't use Mailchimp multiple lists. So there are a few reasons why people may decide to use multiple lists. The most basic way of using Mailchimp is when you set up your basic forms. You have a very basic sign-up form, and that's that one that's got that email and then some text that you can share with people, and it creates that really basic sign-up form where people can put their name, email address, and what other data you like to collect in there. Now the problem with that very basic form is that the only thing you can do with that form is you can't really segment people through it unless you have a group options in it. So what people do is they turn that form into their own landing page for their own offer, and then when they generate another offer that they want to send out to people, they create a whole new list, they create a whole new basic form, and then they send that on the list, or they send that other form out to people so they can get the next offer. And then they stick their offer in the thank you email that comes out through it. And that's not really the correct way of using Mailchimp at all. These basic forms, in a way, I'd probably say that Mailchimp should get rid of this ePearl to stop people going down this route, this very basic sign-up form, because, like I say, people are then using that to create different lists and having the different sign-up forms so they can have different offers. So what they end up with is, let's say we've got 3 different offers, so you end up with list 1, list 2, and list 3. For 3 different offers. Does that make sense? So let's say Mr. Smith comes along and signs up for list 1. And he takes you up on the offer that you have, your first offer. So he ends up on list 1. Now let's say John Smith also signs up to get the offer 2. And he also signs up for offer 3 as well. So John Smith has come along and he signed up for all 3 of your offers. Now in Mailchimp you've got a forever free plan which allows you up to 2,000 subscribers. And now if you are underneath that 2,000 subscribers and you are on the forever free plan, then Mr. Smith is now taking up 3 places on your forever free plan instead of just 1. So that's one issue you've got straight away, is that multiple people on multiple lists are taking up more space on your plan. Now if you imagine you may have 5 or 6 or more offers, and then you start generating lists of hundreds of names, imagine how many names you've got taking up multiple spaces, and that 2,000 subscriber limit is going to get eaten up in no time. If you're paying for Mailchimp, if you're paying for your subscribers, if you've decided to upgrade, or you've gone over your 2,000 free subscribers limit, then you're paying for your contacts or you're paying for your subscribers, then you're paying 3 times for Mr. Smith to be in your account, which obviously is not cost effective. So there's an issue straight away, and that's just one person and just 3 offers. Like I say, if you've got multiple offers, if you've got 5, 6, 7, or even more, some people have 10s or 20. And if you've got lists with hundreds of people on, then imagine how many people you may be paying extra for as well. So there's your first issue. Your next issue is you want to then send out let's say you're doing a monthly newsletter, and so it's come to the end of the month and you want to send a monthly newsletter out. So you create a new email campaign. And you send, or you're in your first list, so you create your campaign and it goes out to all the people that are on list number 1. Okay, no problem. Now you've got people in list 2 and list 3, and you still want them to have this campaign information. You still want them to get your email newsletter as well. Now what you can't do is you can't interact between lists. Different lists are intended for example, different business. You might have 1 account, 3 businesses, 3 lists. That's the way it's intended for use. So you can't interact between lists because they are intended for different things. When people sign up for your information, effectively they're really signing up for 1 list. If they end up on 3 lists because you're not utilising Mailchimp correctly, they may not be aware that they are on 3 lists, but in actual fact, in this case, they are. And because you can't interact between lists, you cannot send that campaign to list 2 or list 3 if you've created it in list 1. So what do you have to do? You basically have to copy it, recreate it, and then send it to list 2. And then if you want it to go to all the people on list 3 as well, you have to copy it, recreate it, and then send it to list 3 as well. So there's your second issue. The whole reason that we're using Mailchimp partly is to make a lot of our email system automated. When people sign up for things, we want things to go out automatically. So by having to copy campaigns and then send it to different lists, you're actually adding a lot of manual work to your workflow. Which is not making effective use of your Mailchimp platform. Another issue we've now got is that John Smith has now got that same campaign here. He's now received it once, twice, and a 3rd time. Do you think people want to be bombarded with the same information from you? Do you think people would get annoyed if you were like sending repetitive emails out with the same information? Possibly. It's certainly, people have got a lot of emails coming through these days, and people need to, people are quite sensitive to having too much information. And if you are bombarding them with information, your likelihood is that you are going to annoy John Smith, and he's going to get a little bit fed up of getting these multiple emails from you. So John Smith now comes along, gets a bit fed up by email number 3, and at the bottom of the email he decides he's going to unsubscribe, and he's taken off your email list, or so he thinks. So at this point he's unsubscribed. Now he thinks he's unsubscribed from your business, but in reality, because he's only clicked on unsubscribe on list number 3, he's still on list number 2 and he's still on list number 1 as well. Now when he unsubscribes, he should be unsubscribing from everything. So what happens at the end of next month, you create a new campaign. You create that campaign at the end of the month. You send it out to list 1 again. You go through your repetitive task of copying it and send it out to list 2. And then you copy it again and you send it out to list 3. So John Smith, who's unsubscribed last month, has now just received your new campaign, not once, but twice. He didn't receive it a third time because he did unsubscribe from this list. So he's actually received 2 emails again from you after he's unsubscribed from your emails. At this point, if John's a really picky person, he could he could go ahead and complain. He could report you to, depending where you are, but if you're in Europe, he could report you to the ICO. Whether anything would actually happen, you know, there's a lot of that for them to look into. But he's got legitimate reason to report you for breaking GDPR rules. He's unsubscribed from your list and you still contact him because you've not used list management effectively. So there's a big issue that you could run into. Now you could say that you might try and keep on top of all this manually. So if somebody unsubscribes from one of your lists, you then go ahead and manually delete them. But again, you're adding a lot of manual work to your workflow. And if you think that you might have, say, depending how many offers you have, you might end up with 4, 5, 6, 7 lists. And if you grow these lists to hundreds of people, it's going to be near impossible to manage multiple lists like that. So you are going to run into many different issues, especially as your lists grow. Now some people do decide to, at the end of every week, what they do is they export, so we can get a different colour pen, they decide they're going to export the whole of list 2, and then import it into list 1, and then they do the same for list 3, and again import it into list 1. And then when they do send the campaigns, they only send it to their list 1, and they call that like a master list. I've seen a lot of people refer to it as multiple lists, but they have the master list where they export everything to, and they do that on a weekly or maybe a monthly basis. Again, by exporting and importing, you're adding a lot of manual work to your workflow. And if you've got multiple lists with hundreds of people, this can be quite a time-consuming task. So you want to eliminate that manual activity from your workflow. You've got other things to be getting on with. The whole point of Mailchimp or email automation is to make things easier for you to send stuff out. The other issue is with exporting is you lose a lot of tag data. So if you have tagged people somewhere in your list for different things, you lose all that data when you do the import. Okay, so if you want to try and eliminate that manually and still keep on top of using multiple lists, I've heard about people using Zapier. So Zapier is a platform, and it's a platform that I use, but not for this reason. Zapier is a platform that takes data from one platform and then moves it to another platform, and you develop all the criteria about where it goes and how it happens. So what people do is they have a in Zapier they have a rule set up so that when somebody joins list 2, they end up onto, or if somebody joins any of your offer lists, so let's say you've got offer 1, offer 2, offer 3, and then you've got a master list. So what people do, they have a rule set up. When somebody joins for offer 1, offer 2 or offer 3, once they've got their offer, Zapier then creates a rule and it copies their data and puts them onto the master list. And then again, when they send campaigns, they only ever send campaigns to their master list. Let's spell it right. Now, if Zapier's taking care of this automatically, then it's not too bad. You know, it's a system that does kind of work, but you still do have to go through and delete people from these lists regularly. And you can have Zapier do that as well, so you're not paying for extra subscribers that are across all 4 lists. But the problem with this is that Zapier has a very limited free service. Like most platforms these days, they give you a certain amount of stuff for free. And Zapier has, I don't know the limits off the top of my head, but they have a certain amount of what they call zaps that you can run, and these are the rules. They've got a certain amount of zaps that you can use per month. So if you've got hundreds of people joining your list, then you're not going to be able to do it all within a free Zapier account. Also on the free account, I think there's a 15-minute delay between the trigger and it making use of the rule to run the rule. So when somebody does sign up, there's a 15-minute delay before they get moved over. So that probably give them a 15-minute delay before they get their offer that they've signed up for as well. Now, people kind of want these things immediately. People are short on patience. So, you know, that's not going to work really for them. So if you do decide to pay for Zapier, then you're adding a cost to your system as well. So you might be eliminating the manual side of it by using multiple lists, but what you're doing is you're adding a cost to your process as well. Now, if you are paying for Mailchimp because you've got over the 2,000 subscribers, then you're not only paying for Mailchimp, but you're now paying for Zapier as well. And also you're learning another platform and how to set it up. So they are all multiple reasons why you shouldn't use multiple lists in Mailchimp. You know, in this example where we've used 1 person and 3 lists, it would be quite easy to keep on top of that and manage it manually. But I think you can see if you have multiple lists, even more of that, and you have hundreds or even thousands of subscribers coming in for your offers, then this is going to become a huge burden and a nightmare to try and manage. Does that make sense? Does that make sense why it can become a nightmare to use multiple lists in Mailchimp? Let me know if you understand that, and yeah, let me know if I've explained that well enough on why not to use multiple lists in Mailchimp. Okay, cool. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go over great detail about how we should use segments in this live, because there's all sorts of different multiple ways of using segments, and we could go on forever about it. But what I'll do is I'll just quickly give an outline. So in that example, we have one Mailchimp account. And we've created 3 different lists to group people in. And we had list 1, list 2, and list 3. Or maybe, as some people do, they have a master list. So they have 4 lists in total. So what they've done is they've got one account and they've got 4 segments by using lists as a segment. Now what they should do to use Mailchimp properly, you've got your Mailchimp account, you should have one list, and that's one list per business. So if you're running 3 businesses, then yes, you can have 3 lists in one Mailchimp account, and they're all there so you can manage them all under one account. But you've got one list, and then what we want instead is 3 segments. So when people opt in for a particular offer, we can put them under one segment like this. And if they opt in for offer 2, they can put them under a segment like this, and a segment like this for offer 3. And because they're all in one list, when we create a campaign and we send it out to the list, we can either send it to the whole list, which we couldn't do in this example because we'd have to copy it and paste it between lists, or we can send the campaign to one segment, or we can send it to 2 segments, or we can send it to the list excluding one of the segments. So for example, if in segment 3 we had an offer for a free ebook, and we decided we wanted to run a campaign to get more sign-ups for the ebook, if that's kind of been lacking on the, people haven't been opting in to get the ebook from you and you think it's got some good value that people can learn, you might want to send out a campaign. Let's do it. Let's call it an ebook campaign. And you want it to go to people on your list. Now, people who are in segment 3 have already got the ebook, so that campaign is not going to be relevant to them at all. So what you can do is send it to your list. So entire list minus people in segment 3. So you're only sending campaigns now that are relevant to the people that may be interested in that service. And when we make use of segments effectively, by using groups, tags, and there's a lot of other different things in Mailchimp that we can use to put people in a segment, to trigger an automation, to add tags, so on and so forth. By making effective use of segmentation and creating our own segments based on different criterias, we can have a really powerful targeting for when we create a campaign in Mailchimp and want to send it out. So that's why we should segment one list. We can move people between segments if we wish. If somebody is going on, let's say we're running a course via Mailchimp and we're delivering content via email. So what we can have is when somebody signs up, they're entered into a segment. And they're known as a student. And we've got that segment, and it's full of people in our list who are currently undergoing a course there that we're offering. Now, when they get to the end of the course, you don't want them in this segment anymore because they're no longer a student. So we could have another segment known as ex-students. So when your person signs up for your course, they're automatically entered into this segment called as a student, and then they go through the process of the course. They get their weekly emails, they complete the content, and once all the content's been sent to them, you don't want them to be in that segment anymore because they're not a student, it's not relevant, but then become an ex-student. So you can have an automation at the end of your automated emails for your students where it moves people from here and puts them into the ex-student segment. It takes them out of the student one. So unlike we said before, where you can't interact between lists, when you're using segments within a list, you can have all sorts of different interactions a little bit like this. And then again, if you are pitching your course to your email list, so you send out a course campaign, then when you send that campaign out, you want it to go to people that it might be relevant to on your list. And it's not relevant to people who are currently students, and it's also not relevant to people who are ex-students. So what we can do is we can send that campaign, I'll just duck down here, we can send that out to our entire list minus student minus ex-students. Make sense? So what that campaign's now going to go and do is it's going to reach people on your email list who haven't signed up for your course or who haven't taken your course. And what you're going to do is the list of people in here and the list of people in here are not going to get irrelevant information sent from you. So you're only targeting the right people. That way people aren't going to get frustrated with irrelevant emails from you. You're going to find that, if you do have a good offer, then if you're sending it out to everybody on your list and say 50 people or half of your list have already taken the course and you send it out to everybody, then that leaves half of your list that it's applicable to, and if only half of those people sign up, you've only got a 25% conversion rate. Whereas if you segment correctly, you send it out to the relevant people on your list, and that would only go to half your list then. And then again, if only half of those people sign up, then you've got a 50% conversion rate. So you're actually getting better conversions by having better targeting. Does that make sense as well? I hope that makes sense too. This is why I really want to sort of help people understand about list management, list segmentation, and really get away from doing this multiple lists that I see so many people doing, because you're just not making effective use of Mailchimp and you're not making effective use of your time as well. So I'm going to leave you with that as it is for now.